back with Behind the Bikini, and it is episode 73. I did check prior to getting on today. I feel so good about myself right now.
Hey, you asked me live at CCTS what episode we were on, and I knew. I was
You
on
did.
it.
You did. You did. I was very proud of you. So we're starting 2025 off right. Yeah, we got this.
We know what episode we're on. Woo!
That's amazing, right? And before we get into it anymore, like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the buttons wherever they are on your devices. We've been getting a ton of interaction in the last few episodes. So that's been great. We're getting a lot of comments. I love that. So I do go in and read all those, and we respond whenever we get a chance. All that kind of fun stuff. We usually address the comments and stuff here on the podcast too. So feel free, keep typing it in. We love that stuff. So with that, it is 2025. We are already off to a really fast start. Clearly I'm back in Vegas again. we were just talking about that when we were getting on here. You're saying that Drew is in Vegas. So today's episode, we're going to go over, what happened at CCTS, some of the questions that came in that kind of surprised us as far as like things that we don't think about. And then also your Arnold prep and how everything's going with that. But tell me a little bit. We were starting to talk about this a little bit before we started the podcast. I was like, wait, let's talk about it on the podcast. I think this is really cool because people don't know this. So tell us a little bit about, Drew's background with the whole NASCAR thing.
Yeah, so Drew, he's very humble. He would never tell anybody unless it comes up in conversation, or some people have found his autograph card from years ago on the internet. So if you're really interested, you could Google it. Joe Pishkula one time found them and bought I don't know, 15 of them and posted them up in a room. It was so funny. But yes, he used to drive for NASCAR when he was younger. NASCAR is not what we think. It is not a fully sponsored sport. So basically anyone that you see professional in NASCAR, basically they bring $1 million to the table, and then the team brings $1 million to the table. So, Drew and his dad got to a point where they were sitting down with all the big, sponsorships of NASCAR and decided that they needed to walk away. So Chase Elliott, I don't know if anybody knows Chase Elliott. Drew and him were really good friends at one point. He shotgunned his first beer with Bush. So it's kind of crazy. So anyway, they're in Vegas today, Drew and his dad. So it's pretty cool. Drew's parents flew out from Miami to Arizona yesterday morning. Drew's mom and her sister, who lives in Arizona, are going to Sedona for the weekend to do some girl time. And then Drew and his dad met up at the airport. They immediately flew to Vegas yesterday, and they're doing this whole NASCAR car experience. So half the day today, I think they're doing track work. So they get to pick 4 to 6 cars that they want to drive and play with on the track and have fun. And then they go out to the desert and they're going to do ATVs and side by sides and gosh. And then I don't know if I mentioned this on the last podcast. I know I mentioned it on my YouTube, but Drew did partially tear his Achilles last week. So he's been dealing with that. Yeah. So
I actually don't know if you mentioned it here or not, but you did at CCTS. So I do know about it. So yeah.
Yeah, so he very quickly, he went up to the roof. We have a walking track on the roof, and he was responding to training footage, and he just started he wanted to go up to the roof and sit there, I guess, and he was wearing these awful shoes, whatever, not walking shoes. And he decided to go walk a couple laps on the track, and I guess before he knew it, it was 2.5 miles, and then he played pickleball that night. And then he woke up the next day and couldn't walk. So he definitely partially tore it. He is feeling better, but it's still not 100%. So I told him he better wrap it and tape it. And if he comes back and it's fully torn, I don't want to freaking hear about it.
That's true because people don't realize actually being a NASCAR driver, you have to be an athlete. It's actually an athletic sport. So the stuff that they're doing here, is that something that he can do because he did NASCAR, or is it something that anybody could do?
Anybody can do it. Okay. It's a whole experience, and they hired a coach, or it comes with it, a coach. And Drew's I'm so interested to see what this coach does. And he called his dad on the front end, and he's like, do not tell them that I've driven before. I want to see how they coach us.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because piggybacking on that, I used to live in Hoboken, New Jersey, outside of Manhattan. In my day job, I worked for this company called Experience Days. And we sold packages like that. That's what we did. So it was all of these different experiences. It was with an X. It was it was all these different experiences. You could purchase a whole package to go and do. That was one of them actually that people could buy. It was a NASCAR package. That's why I was curious about that.
It's really cool because like
Yeah.
most people never drive these cars in their lifetime, right? Like a 911 Porsche and they had like a GT. Like these are vehicles that are really expensive and
Mhm.
most people don't get to go full throttle on a track with
Right.
them. So it really is a cool experience. And I know the desert stuff is something his dad has wanted to do for years. Like when I first got started in the family, he has always talked about that. My ex used to own a dirt bike shop. So like we used to be at the track every weekend. So him and his dad and I used to talk about that all the time, like, you know, dirt riding and whatever.
Mhm.
So it's going to be cool. It's going to be really cool to hear their experience. I think they come back tomorrow afternoon or Saturday. I have to touch base with him on that. And then they're here for a couple days, his parents. So then I'll be able to see them as well. So I'm excited.
Okay. So do they also record all that? Like, do you get to see footage of it and stuff like that?
I don't know. I told him this morning, he just called me before and he's like, if I die, make sure you marry well. And he's not allowed to call my dogs his own. And I love you. Goodbye. And I'm like, I hung up and I'm like, that's how, oh, okay. But I told him, please take some footage.
Yeah.
Please
Hmm.
take some video and some photos for the YouTube too. You know, I'm sure everybody
Yeah.
want to see it. So hopefully he follows through with that. He's not the best with that, but he's getting better.
Yeah, it's so hard. We've talked about that before. It's like you when you want to experience the actual event itself, it's hard to record it at the same time. I mean, we're talking about that with even with CCTS. I'm terrible with that stuff. We had Costa photography there taking pictures, which was great. He took some really good like individuals plus like action shots and stuff. He did a fantastic job. Um, the Shop Gym events, they also recorded the whole thing too. But on top of that, all the girls that were in attendance were taking pictures and videos and stuff the whole time too, and we were sharing those in the WhatsApp groups that everybody had them, and that was really cool for me. Like we started doing the shared pictures and stuff a couple of years ago, and just getting those candid moments and stuff. Those are things you can always look back on, and it's just you don't get them from anything else. You don't even get those from the professionals. You know what I mean? So those are some of my favorite shots that we get. You know.
Yeah, they're like the live-in moments.
Yeah. And and again, when I go into these events and stuff like that, I want to experience it. And if you're always behind your phone or behind your camera, you don't get to do that, you know? So I appreciate all the girls taking the time to do that kind of stuff because it makes it fun for me to go back and remember, oh yeah, that happened, or oh yeah, this happened, or whatever it might be. So yeah, it was a whirlwind of a weekend. But yeah, we were going to talk about that a little bit because I think there was a few things that happened specifically as far as questions I got, and I don't know about you. Before we get into that though, because we want to talk about Arnold. So how are you doing with your prep?
Where do I start? So if you've been watching the YouTube series, you're up to date. Yeah, so we started the Arnold prep like right after Christmas. And I started at like 130.8 pounds. And then just for context, my stage weight at the Olympia was like 121, like 122, something of that nature. So, and I stayed fairly lean. So we're like, all right, it's going to be super easy prep, whatever. No. So I did not drop weight at all. Just literally stuck at like 130.8 for weeks. Going into CCTS, I was extremely stressed because I was like, at what point do I pull out? Right? Like, at what point is the needle not move and, you know, we pull out? So Jamie kept assuring me everything's fine. Within a 2 week period, I went from 2,100 calories to 1,500 calories and 20 minutes of cardio to 60 minutes of cardio. So we had to get aggressive fast because nothing was working. So we get to CCTS. We're literally in the car on the way to the airport, and she was like, "What happened to your weight?" And I'm like, "Nothing. Still at 130.8." So she's like, "All right. So this weekend, I just want you to like deload, train how you want to. It's gonna come. It's coming." I'm like, "All right." So Saturday morning, I woke up and I was like 128.6. So finally had a drop. And then Sunday, I woke up and I was like 127. So it was a little bit less. And then Monday morning, I woke up to leave and I was like 126. So we're seeing the needle move back down. During this time, nobody knew this over the weekend because I didn't say anything to anyone except for obviously the Fit Body girls because I was with them. I did injure my rib on like Monday or Tuesday before CCTS, and it's going to be in the next YouTube video that I put out because I was recording. It looks like nothing in the video, but I was doing a kickback on the GHD machine, and it has like that really wide opening between the two pads. So when I went to go lay down, somehow my rib just kind of slipped perfectly into that groove, and I felt the rib pop in and then back out. And you literally see me fall to the ground, like in the video. I was like, wow, that hurts. And it hurt acutely, but then it just kind of felt sore, but it wasn't painful. Friday night after I was on the plane because it was about 5 hours to get from Phoenix to DC. I was in 10 out of 10 pain. Like I couldn't move. I couldn't get my bag out of the overhead compartment. I couldn't sleep that night. And so I dealt with this all weekend. And mind you, I have nothing on me. You know, I have no Advil. I have no TB 500. I have no BPC, obviously. Like I'm just suffering and not sleeping all weekend. But got to still show up. So, got on the plane on Monday. That completely aggravated it. I was in really bad shape. I'm feeling a lot better. I have the PEMF machine on right now, which is like a radio frequency. So I've been doing this a lot. Obviously a lot of BP and TB 500, a lot of Advil. And I do feel about 75% better. So we're improving. But if you've ever had a rib injury, like, you know, they freaking suck. Hey, Siri, turn the timer off. That's my reminder for my TB 500. So I did get a rib injury going to the Olympia too, which is crazy, but it wasn't this bad, you know? So, and that rib injury was like trauma. Like I was like, I hit it and got something like inside of it. So, and it wasn't even this bad. And that took 2 weeks to heal. So I'm hoping that doesn't fuck with me too much. My weight has slowly been going back up since I've been home. So what we're trying to think about, we're trying to put together if it's my intra workout shake, because I look so full still in my check-in photos. Like I've never seen my glutes look like this. Like when I get lean enough, guys, like I hate to toot my own horn, and you guys know I don't do that a lot, but it's going to be crazy. Like my glutes look full. I just need to get lean.
Well, I was going to say something because you keep saying this whole thing about your weight not dropping, but when you were at CCTS, you were visibly lean in your face.
I know,
like visibly
bad right now. Yeah.
You know, so it's got to be something else. You know what I mean? Like if you were just wearing a sweatshirt like what I'm wearing right now, I would think you're stage lean right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like 5% off in my midsection, but I always get lean in my midsection first. It's just my glutes. And honestly, it's not that bad. Like it's close.
Yeah.
But we think it's my intra workout shake. We think it's just like that. The pump and the EAA is just kind of working too well and keeping me too full. So I'm not like getting flat. So Drew said,
because that would be the one thing you didn't have at CCTS, right?
Bingo.
Yeah.
And I wasn't training obviously as hard with the deload. I had full intentions. Like I was prepared to like go to DMB, iron both days and like train. But then when she told me to take the deload, I just did some silly workouts in the hotel gym and it really wasn't anything. So I'm sure I dropped some inflammation, you know? So we said if my weight continued to go up today to drop it. So I'm going to drop my intra workout shake today. And, I think this also has to do with inflammation, right? Like I'm on 60 minutes of cardio right now and my training intensity is still through the roof. So I'm sure it has something to do with that too. But just like anybody, I get focused and stressed on the number too. So I visibly look leaner, just like you're saying. I see it in my face. And Adair said that the other night. I saw her on Tuesday. She's like, your face has changed a lot since Thursday. Because I saw her Thursday before we left for CCTS. She's like, you've changed a lot in 5 days. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just trusting Jamie at this point. We're checking in every 3 days. She just dropped my food again yesterday. I'm like, I'm at the mercy of cardio right now.
And this is a great example because like, you know, people always come, I know they come to you and ask you these questions too as a coach, like, how much do I need to lose? When am I going to be ready to get on stage? How is this prep going to look? How's that prep going to look? And even when you check all the boxes and do everything right, that does not mean it's going to go according to plan. It goes like this, you know, like it just is like that. I don't know about you, but at CCTS, this is the first year that I've had training clients at CCTS, right? It's always just been posing in presents and suits and all that kind of stuff because I didn't do the training until starting February last year. So this year I had girls there that do the whole thing, you know, and I had them coming up to me being like, well, now that you see me in person, so can we do this? I was like, it's the same answers that I gave to you in your check-ins. We're still doing the same thing. I'm like, you know, there's not anything to change. Like, I understand you're like excited and like want to go and blah blah blah, but we still gotta check all these boxes. And I can't tell you if we're gonna be ready or if we're not. I can't tell you, like, because they're looking to do, like, a couple of them are looking to do nationals maybe this year, maybe next year. It depends on how much they can grow, but they haven't grown enough at this point. You know what I mean? So it's like we still have to check all the boxes, and I can't tell you if it's going to go perfectly or not. Like, I can't tell you that, it's almost like they're looking for, and I've done this too, looking for like that magical answer, and there is no magical answer. You
And no
have to be ready
prep
to
is the
pivot.
same.
That's right. That's right. You have to be ready to pivot depending on what's happening, like you're doing right now.
Yeah,
You
I
would
think
think it wouldn't be that difficult coming right out of the Olympia.
yeah, and I think too, like I have in my head, like to your point, like I have in my head, I usually have to cut down after an off season
Yeah.
to 118 and fill back out to 121. And Jamie's like, we're not pulling off that much body fat. There's no way I'm
Yeah.
getting you down to 118. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, are you sure? Like,
Yeah.
so it's just
Yeah.
like to your point, it's a completely different body than what I'm dealing with. And two, if you guys have been following me for a while, and Shawn, I know you know this, like it usually takes my body 4 to 6 weeks to start dropping. So is this normal for me? Yes. It
Yeah.
just didn't meet my expectations. I had an
Right.
expectation that because I stayed so much leaner, that this was just going to be so much easier. I was going to respond faster. Just not the case.
Yeah.
And also to your point, I was talking to Andrea, who's a cutie at
Yeah.
CCTS. She's been off the stage for a while. She's also somebody that had to switch from figure to wellness. Then when I took her on, I'm like, we're not doing wellness, we're doing bikini. So her and I have spent a year together just growing, and she's been off stage for years before that. We're prepping this year. And she's like,
Yeah.
where do you think I'm going to be? And I'm like, Andrea, I have no idea.
I
We're working with
know.
a completely different body now, right? Like,
Yes.
you're not figure,
Oh,
you're
she
not
is.
wellness.
She's
Yeah.
completely different. Like when I saw her at CCTS, I was like, she's never looked like that ever.
Yeah. So, and
Pulling
I told
around,
her,
pulling
and-
around.
yeah. And I told
Yeah.
her, like, I was very straight up, like, I don't know what your stage weight's gonna be at this point. We just got to start cutting, and then I will communicate with you when we're closer. Hey, I think we're 8 pounds off. Hey, I think we're 5 pounds off. But I truly don't know. And that's the beauty of bikini in a
Yeah.
way, is that it's a look, but it could
Yep.
be maddening for the people that need that number to work towards. And we just don't
Yep.
really have that data in the beginning when it's been so long of that client off stage, or maybe it's our first prep together.
Yeah. Or just changes. I mean, I'll go with myself. Like I'm kind of the opposite of you right now, where my weight is just staying steady. Just you can see I'm getting fuller. I'm fuller, I'm rounder, my glutes are growing, my legs are growing, all those kinds of things. My measurements are there, but my weight is literally a pound higher than what it was in California last month.
That's
And
crazy.
I'm just like, and I'm eating 2,400 calories, no cardio, and for me, again, I think the mental is a huge piece of it. I mentioned this in my post yesterday I made on Instagram. For the first time, I feel like, oh, I could actually do this and be competitive. Like, we've always talked about that. I know what my genetic downfalls are. I get it. I understand that, and that mental piece, no matter how hard you play and say that you're working as hard as you can, that mental piece is already back here. Like, I know what my disadvantages are. You know what I mean? So now I'm like, I see this as an opportunity to almost reshape a division. You know what I mean? Like to do it how I want to do it. And that has been incredibly, incredibly helpful for my mental state. Like just and that triggers everything. That triggers everything. It triggers your training, it triggers your diet, how you do everything every day. My body's just not in a stress state. My brain's not in a stress state, and it's all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're just gonna respond completely. We're just gonna respond, and it's like, it's interest. It's so interesting to see like how much the mental part of it makes such a huge, huge difference. Huge.
To your point of like setting the division, something that I thought was so cool this weekend at CCTS, I was actually getting a little emotional. You kind of made history again with, I think that this weekend was the first weekend that we're really seeing fit model on a stage.
Absolutely.
If you're not familiar with CCTS, Shawn on the second day does a mock show for all the
Mhm.
girls so they can enroll in a division. They could do whatever divisions they want to and get in front of judges for feedback. And then she puts a panel together and we judge them and we move them around just like stage. And I was looking at the fit model on stage and I was like, holy shit, this is the first time that fit model is on a stage. And it was so cool to see because these are
Absolutely.
girls that are curious about Fit Model and want to get up there and see what it looks like. And that's what we're going to see the first 10 shows out of the year. All of these different bodies,
Absolutely.
but you were able to put it together first. And it was really cool for me as a coach because I was seeing different body types up there, right? I was seeing an IFBB Masters bikini pro and up there compared to a girl that has been at
Has never
CCTS for
competed.
many years, had no interest in competing, and now she is because Fit Model is available. And seeing
Yep.
all the different bodies up there, it was amazing, and I
Yeah.
did get emotional, watching it. And I know you were on the side stage and kind of taking it all in too, but
Yeah.
you're starting the vision of Fit Model through
Yeah.
cutie.
Yeah, that was something that hit me during the weekend. I'm gonna get like emotional talking about it. Holy shit, I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, like that was something that hit me during the stage show. I was like, this is legitimately the first time this is on stage. Period. We've been talking about it nonstop for 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it's been since they've made the announcement. But that is legitimately the first time it was on stage, period. And so many girls during the posing portion of it on Saturday came in just wanting to try it. And I know there were several girls that I've talked to before the event that was like, well, you could potentially be this. So let's see what you look like in person. And then once I saw them in person, it was either, oh yeah, you're definitely a fit model, or no, you're not at all. You know what I mean? There was like no in between.
And something that I found really cool about that too is that all of us, so the professionals, were spread
Mhm.
around the room and they were
Yep.
coming to all of us for different advice on that. And we were all on the same page with that
Yep.
specific athlete. Every single athlete that I heard that I gave feedback to, they were like, oh, yeah, Shawn and Jamie told me that too. Yep, Shawn and Jamie told me that too. Yep, Shawn. Like we were all saying the same. So, which means too that our eye is starting to, already get perfected for the Fit Model as well, which
Yeah.
I was like, thank God. I'm seeing it. I
Absolutely.
know what it's gonna look. I think I could see it.
Absolutely. And like, so I did take some phone footage during the stage show. So what I'll do at the end of this podcast, at the very end, after we finish it out, I'll put that phone footage up. It's not great. It's
Oh,
just
that'd
from
be
an iPhone,
perfect.
me going across. But I got phone footage of each of the classes. We had 3 different height classes that we did. The short class was the smallest and the tall class was the biggest. This always happens with my events. And I think it's because I'm tall. So tall girls just like gravitate towards me whenever we're talking about events. But the C class in both bikini and fit model was like 3 times the size of the other classes.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I was like, holy shit, this is a big class.
It
I think it's
always
one of the only
happens.
ones that we had to do 2 different call outs for.
Yes. Yeah. It always happens like that at every one of my events. And again, I think people just gravitate towards people that they look like or whatever. So like that's what was happening at CC. It's always happened like that. It's always been the tall class has been huge. So you'll be able to see the difference between the bodies too. And I will say, I don't know about you, but I felt like the fit model looked way better on tall girls than it did on short girls
Oh,
personally.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Just you've been very open about your struggles, and it's I'm 5'3", what, 5 pounds on me you can see, 5 pounds on you cannot, so
Yeah.
for these girls, the Gertrude who won my 6 months coaching
Yeah.
sponsorship, she is so tall with tall, long limbs. And, she's been kind of
Mhm.
working towards stage for a while, but she knew she was so behind for bikini. Now she has this fit model division where she knows, like, I just got off a call with her before this. Like, she's like, I want to be on Fit Model in 2026. Like, it gives her a new fire, a new
Yep.
life. And it is something that's attainable for her. I really
Right.
do think that, So I think this is going to open up a lot of doors for the taller girls that, are just really, really struggling to keep up with and add the density needed for a bikini.
100%.
My client Stephanie, who's been working towards bikini for a while, she looks like a pro from the front, but she needs
Doesn't have the
glutes.
density.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
she's beautiful. She actually won the fitness, what do you call it, at
It was the fitness model award. It was like, was it last year or the year before? It was the
last
year before. It was
oh,
not last year, it was the year before.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she won it's and that award that we give out is like, like swimsuit cover model, like, and again, what we think fit model is going to be, a lot of
Yeah.
posing and the glam and the prettiness, and that's my
The
client
look.
Stephanie. Yeah.
The
Yeah,
look.
like
Yeah.
she's going to be perfect for that. And everybody
Yeah.
on the judging table was like, she needs to go to fit model. I'm like, we're on
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And the funny part about that too, I don't know if she shared this with you or not. I know she's had a hamstring tear or whatever it was.
for 6 months. Yeah,
So
that.
yeah, so we were talking about that at the Monday because I held a Monday intensive posing seminar. And we had a handful of girls that signed up for that, and we've got more in depth with each one of the girls. We talked about things that we don't talk about, like in public settings and stuff like that. But she mentioned that, and she was like, she's like, I feel like I'm doing the work. She goes, but I feel like I'm not seeing the density of growth and all that kind of stuff that I need to see. And we started talking about that. And that's when she mentioned the injury. I said, and that's when I said, I was like, those things matter. Those things will affect everything else. I said, I really think that the reason why you're not seeing the growth that you feel like you should is because of that, is because of the injury. We started
Totally.
we started talking about all the different things, and then she brought up the injury, and we're like, well, that's the reason why.
Yeah.
I mean, she looks great. She's got great shape. She doesn't have that thickness there,
Yeah.
you know, and I really think that's the issue. And once we, again, just sitting down and kind of going through all of the things, like what she was doing right, all this kind of stuff. And then she mentioned the injury. We're like, well, that's why. We're like,
A
so
huge part of it. Yeah, you can't grow
yeah,
your
yeah.
glutes if every time you do a hip hinge, you feel like it's gonna pop, or tear, So,
Yep.
you have to
But
be realistic.
well, and going back to your point too, like this is a division that we're getting to mold from the ground up. She looks like a bikini pro from the front, right? She
That was
actually
her
looks,
feedback last year too at nationals.
yeah, she looks better in the bikini poses from the front than the fit model poses. But
Correct.
from the back, she's fit model,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
I
it's
truly
like,
believe like she's feeling a lot better with the glute injury. That
good.
this is like she got off stage at Universe, and this is when we started this journey with the glute injury.
Yeah.
She's like, I just don't feel right. I'm like, let's go get it checked out. Let's go get an MRI, and that's when we figured out there was an issue. She's been
Yeah.
dealing with that since July of last year, and now is the first time where she's like, I want to go in 100% again at training, because we haven't
Yeah.
really been going 100%. We've been very cautious with the injury. We've been working with a physician. My hands are tied as a coach once you're working with a physician. I have to do what the physician wants.
Right.
So yeah, we're remotivated. I saw her this weekend, gave her a new training block. We're gonna start, really, really training again. I feel like if she can get her training intensity back to where it was, obviously before injury, I really do believe that it's an easy pro card for her next season.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. Her, and then also Lauren. So Lauren won the overall, and she won the Fit Model Award this year.
incredible,
Beautiful girl.
incredible.
Beautiful girl. So like the funny part about that is like we were just saying how this division kind of fits towards the taller girls, and she was in the short class.
Yeah, but
But
newer. She's young.
yes.
She's got that young muscle, but just God, she's stunning. And not only that, she's got like, I know everybody's like, yeah, duh. She's got that champion mindset. Like
Oh
she
yeah.
networked all weekend. She had
Yes.
really great questions. She's studying her sport.
hmm And she has great muscle control and like body awareness, things like that too. Because again, she was there on Monday too. So we started tweaking little things with her posing. And I would tell her to do something and boom, she would do it.
Oh,
It's
that's
like
so great.
it's so hard for girls to do that. You don't realize like how hard it is for people to do that. That takes a lot of body awareness. One of the things that she has going on for herself, same thing I do, she has a rib cage flare. So I was like, you need to pull that rib cage in. And as soon as she would do that, like her whole freaking physique would just come together. And it was like that right there is crucial. And she would do it immediately. I'd say rib cage, it just sucked in. Like she was good. That right there is huge. If you don't have the body awareness to be able to do something when people tell you to do it, you need to work on that. It's a mind muscle connection, and it will make a huge difference in how you pose.
Do you have
Huge.
any tips and tricks like for your posing clients, or someone that does really struggle with like the body awareness? Like, do you have any kind of exercises or things that you would suggest for people to start learning body awareness? Because this is really like, I remember my first posing coach, like, I had no clue what she was talking about and how I should feel something. It took time, but do you have anything like that?
Yeah, so we kind of talked about this a little bit at CCTS with the mobility thing too. Like my topic was talking about how I can find different things that you have issues with your mobility based on how you're posing, right? So we see gluten impingements, we see your back cramped up, whatever. The biggest thing that I can suggest is usually these issues happen with muscles you can't physically see, like your back, your glutes. You can't see them. You don't watch them. We call them mirror muscles, right? You don't watch them when you train them. So a lot of times guys look great from the front. They've got the big chest and the arms and biceps and stuff like that, and their back sucks, right? Because they can't see their back in the mirror and they can't connect to it, right? So if you can't see one of your muscles, or if you're having a hard time with connecting your brain to something else, touch it. that is the best thing you can do, is to touch that particular muscle when you're trying to move it. Like when we were talking about the rib cage flare, right? We always do that aspect of putting your fingers on your rib cage and then pulling together. Like I could probably do it here so you could see it. I've got my
Visual.
CCTS
Dude, I've been
jacket
living
on
in
right
that
now, right?
jacket. I have
I
been
know, right?
living. I left it in my car yesterday after the gym. I'm like, fuck. So I gotta get it today.
I'm like, this is the 10-year reunion right there. We got the 10, I'm like sporting the 10-year or 10-year
I
reunion. 10
love a zip up, and I love like the big feel. I love that you can wear it off a
yes.
shoulder. Visual.
Yes.
Sorry, keep going.
So that's okay. So we're talking about the rib cage flare, like right here, my rib cage pokes out. So like when you use vacuums and stuff, it's supposed to poke out, but when you're on stage, you don't want it to. So when I flare, it's really wide, makes my waistline really wide. But then when I'm able to pull it in, it
Oh
pulls my
wow,
waistline together.
that's
Huge,
crazy.
huge, right? I'm not moving my hands; it's my rib cage moving. So if I do the suck in and blow out,
Wow.
right? So if you can't physically feel that, touch it so that you can get your brain to connect to it. So that then that way, when you actually pull it together, you can feel it come together,
Yeah.
right? Those kinds of things. That same thing with the lats. When you're doing the lat pull downs, make sure that you're touching your lats. You can feel your lat actually moving. Anytime you can touch it, you're going to get better activation than when you don't, because you can't see it. You can't physically know if something is moving. That is my biggest number one tip that I do with girls, with specifically things like that. Glutes, like when you're training in the gym, you always want to touch your glute when you're actually training the glute, because you're going to feel it more, and it's just going to connect to your brain more. And then eventually over time, you're not going to need to touch it anymore in order to feel that, right? So
So what I'm
that's my
hearing
number one
is
thing.
posing is similar to training in the way that like
Correct.
if you're trying to feel it and activate it, touch that area. So if your posing coach says, "Hey, I want you to rotate your hips more because I want you to pop that glute," feel the glute so you could try to feel what it feels like when it's
100%.
popped. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
100%. Touch it. Touch it.
Cool.
That's I don't know what it's a mind connection to the actual physical touch, right? They
Sure.
talk about it in your training. I mean, we do it during training. It's the same thing in posing.
Okay.
That is the biggest thing that I can tell you to do, as far as to start with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's lots of other things. People are going to connect, do we always say it depends, it's people are going to connect different ways through different things, all that kind of stuff. But that is the number one thing. That's the first thing.
I just thought of a really great thing we should have done. Every time that we say it depends at CCTS, we all take a shot.
We would have hammered all weekend long.
Hammer.
It's like, no, man, I would not have survived.
How many times we say that phrase as coaches? It depends.
Oh my God.
But
Yeah.
it does. It
But
depends.
it does. It does. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like there's always fundamentals, but then there's things that are going to be different for each person. Again, fit model is the easiest one to kind of talk about with this, because there's just so many what ifs at this point. So like when the people were coming around and coming to me to pose for fit model, we were almost all of us posing coaches were posing people relatively similar, but we all had different things we wanted them to do. Like they would have been kicked off to one side and I have them twist the hip a little bit more. Somebody else would have had them just a little bit more straight on, things like that. So those are things we're going to have to watch with the division as it goes. So it's not even like at this point, it's not even a physique thing. It's more okay, let's see what they're going to reward thing, because they might reward girls that come a little bit more straight on. They may
Correct.
not, we have to look at those things as the girls are on stage, so that's a big it depends. The hardest thing I think for some girls to do in fit model right now is to not stop during the transitions.
Yeah.
So
You're not
I'm
allowed to like
telling
pose in between the front and back. Yeah.
I'm telling everybody to still hit your transitions as if you would during bikini, but keep yourself moving. Like if you need to pause your feet, keep your arms moving, right? Because they've specifically said in the criteria they don't want those poses. They want to front and back and move through it. So you have to keep your body moving the whole time. You cannot stop and pause.
Yeah.
So stop your feet, but keep your arms going. So that way your body's still in motion,
And that's another thing we'll see once it gets on stage is like what they allow. And listen, expediters know that they can rush the girls. So like, thank you. So that means you're taking too long, so
That's right.
those are the things we'll know what we're allowed to get away with.
That's right. Absolutely. It's going to be interesting because the first pro qualifier this year is the Pittsburgh show, and it's a natural.
Yeah.
So that's going to be very interesting. And then we're going to go into Junior USA's. I'm going to do one of my first like posing retreat things here in Vegas right after that, because at that point we will have some clarification This is something else too. They're going to have, the pro cards given out at Junior USA's and also the Pittsburgh show, and you're going to have your Olympia judges judging that. So we're going to get to the criteria a lot quicker with this particular division than what they have in the past. Like if you remember when wellness first was coming onto the scene, they didn't do anything like that. They've
Correct.
never done it this way, which I actually am real. This is a very, very smart way to do this, I think, because it's going to be set from the top down versus the down up. You
I
know what I
agree.
mean?
I agree. Wellness was just already so developed at that point with all of the girls in Brazil, like already
Right.
trained. So like we're really just creating like a new division again, what Bikini was supposed to be and bringing it back. But I am going to be at Junior USA's. They're giving out 4 pro cards for Fit
Mhm.
Model. I do not have anybody that's competing in it, but I did plan on staying after. I'm usually one of the last ones with Sandy anyway, and
Yeah.
saying, hey, tell me about who you picked. What did you like? What did you not like? And like really
Yeah.
picking her brain on what she looked for, at that first show.
And I'm gonna push a couple of girls to do the Pittsburgh show, but just more so to get on stage. Not Junior USA's. And here's my reasoning for this. This is one of the girls actually asked me this question at CCTS because they're going to be setting the standard over the first few shows. And here's the thing: you get a pro card at Junior USA's, you can't compete until 2026.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like my point in that is there's no sense in rushing this to
What do you
try to
do the
get to the
rest of the
pro
year?
stage because you got
Grow.
nothing to do. It's
It
like
forces you to grow. It's not a
right,
bad thing, but like if you really
right.
want to compete, then once you get
Yeah.
the pro card, you're shit out of luck for the year.
Right. Well, and here's my thought process too. Unless you have one of those looks where you're just like a Lauren, like the girl that from this past weekend, unless you have one of those looks where it's like, oh my God, she's just stunning as soon as she walks on stage, you're trying to piece things together still. So let's wait and let those people that have that, oh my God, look at you kind of look, set that standard so then you know what to do later on in the year. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That my coach's mentality is at that point. You know what I mean? So I don't personally have any clients right now where I feel like they could just walk out on stage and win the whole thing. If you have a client that you feel like they could walk out on stage and win the whole thing, put them in it.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
so that's my
Yeah.
2 cents on that aspect. And again, I don't want to rush people to the stage. I never want to rush people to the stage anyway, but people get so excited about this that they want to get up there and they want to do it. It's like, okay, cool. But you got to remember, like, there's still things you need to work on. And there's still expense to this sport too. Let's play this smarter, not harder. You know what I mean? Like,
And Junior USA is in Charleston. It's a heavy travel load to get
yeah,
there. It's not
yeah,
easy. I'm biased, but I love Junior USA. That's where I turned
of
pro.
course,
But
because you won
a
the pro
lot of
card. Yeah,
right. But a lot of people don't like that show because it's harder to get the pro card there. It's not
right.
just winning your class. You have to get top 4, top 2, whatever it is in the overall. So
Yep.
however, it's so early in the year that numbers are usually a little bit smaller. However, numbers have just been small in general. So it's hard now to kind of like estimate, who's going to be there, how many people are going to be there, what's going to show up. I really do think that Fit Model as a whole, speaking outside of Junior USA's, I really do think that the classes are going to be pretty large. I really
Great.
do. I think that people
Excellent.
are, there's so much hype about this right now. I think the negative comments are starting to kind of come down a little bit. I think people are starting to kind of open up a little bit more and see kind of both sides per se. Of course, people
Mhm.
have, opinions about both, but I really do think it's gonna be one of the bigger divisions this year. But
I agree.
that's
Just
just
across
that's
the
just my
board.
opinion. I don't obviously know that for sure, but
Well,
I know from talking to all the girls at CCTS and like girls outside of my roster, like everyone's really excited for it, and it's
yes,
kind of breathing life back into the sport. They feel like it's
absolutely.
something they can do, it's attainable, and again, like that's what we need. Like I want everyone to be able to have the opportunity to do this sport outside of coaching and getting on stage. Like we all have talked about how much bodybuilding has affected our lives in a positive way. I heard that from girls at CCTS that are bodybuilding and haven't never even stepped on stage. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So everyone deserves that experience if they're willing to put in the time, the discipline to get there, and
Yep,
now they just have a very realistic goal for them to work towards.
yep. And I will say this from my perspective as well, because I have a lot of girls that over the last 10 years have come to almost every single one of those CCTSs because they still love the sport, they love the community, they love being around the other girls, but they don't compete. And the reason why is because they don't feel like they can. They don't feel like they can fit. I've said this 1,000 times. It's really hard for me to look at a girl who comes in for a consultation and say, yeah, you can be competitive in bikini in 3 years. You know what I mean? It's hard for somebody who's never competed to sit back and say, okay, so I can do this, but I got to wait 3 years to even see if I like it. You know what I mean? So they will come to CCTS because they love the aspect of being in the sport. They still lift, they still train, they still eat, they still do all the things. They love all the women in the sport, all this kind of thing, but they don't ever get on an actual stage outside of CCTS because they just know. They just know what it's going to put, what they're going to have to put their body through, and they know they're not going to be competitive or whatever it might be. Now, I can't tell you how many girls came up to me at the event this weekend and were like, I am so excited that I can actually compete again. It's crazy. And they haven't competed for, 5, 10 years because they just didn't want to. They didn't want to put their body through that. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
lot of girls that came up in my posing line and, I was like, "Hey, how's your year been? What
Yeah.
have you been doing? You look good, whatever." And one of the girls I talked to, I still don't know why she doesn't get on stage. She looks amazing and she actually has decent muscle. And I was like, "How has your year been? You look great. You've added muscle." She's like, "Really? I had like barely get into the gym right now. I'm like only training like 2 to 3 days a week." But she's got the posing suit, she's got the heels, she poses well, she has great stage presence. Just never wants to step on stage. And
Yeah.
listen, mad respect, mad respect for that. But like, how cool, like that's what you've created, right? Still an event that
Yeah.
somebody wants to pay a pretty good fee for, and they believe in it enough that that's the start of their year. That's what
So,
gets them going. That's what sets their goals. That's what makes them set their expectations of themselves. And they don't want to step on stage. They have no interest, but
yep.
it keeps them on the straight and narrow for their health and fitness goal, through the year.
Yeah. For a lot of girls, they use CCTS as a way to stay on track. Like through the holidays or whatever. They stay on their meal plans, they stay on their training, their cardio and all that stuff so they look good when they get on stage. We're not judging them on their physiques, but they still want to look good. They still want to feel good. They still want to rock their dresses every night. You know what I mean? So
My
it gives
client
them
Raven, who came from CCTS,
yeah.
she started with me like 8 weeks before Cuties, and
Yep.
she was like, "My goal is to get into this dress for CCTS." I was like, "Got
Right.
it. I know what we're working
That's
towards."
right.
Yep.
Absolutely. It gives them something to shoot for.
Yes.
Every girl wants that. They want some sort of something that's going to keep their confidence up, that's going to keep them motivated and pushing. And, some people might think it's silly to have a goal to fit into a dress, but fuck it. If that's your goal, that's your goal. You know what I mean? Who's to judge you on that? You know what I mean? Like,
That goal's better than no goal at all. And that's
right.
why people like are like, "I'm lost," or they can't stick to a diet for more than 2 weeks because you haven't assessed your why. You haven't assessed
That's
what the
right.
goal is. You're working toward nothing.
That's right.
Starting a diet or any kind of fitness or health and wellness journey without goals is it's not setting you off on the right foot. It does not keep you motivated and disciplined.
It's just like anything else in life. I mean, you wouldn't expect to go into, like, if you're a salesperson, you wouldn't expect to go into your job and not have sales quotas you have to hit. If they just say, well, just sell whatever this month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully this is enough and I don't get no, like there's
Right.
absolutely with anything in life, there's, a criteria, an expectation,
Yeah,
a guideline. Like you have to also keep that and check that with yourself.
absolutely. Absolutely. So with that, so how many, like, what were some of the things that maybe were kind of eye-opening to you as far as questions or things that people commented on to you while you were there that weekend?
My topic in particular was about training and training
Mhm.
intensity. And not that I didn't know that people really struggle with the training aspect, but just another friendly reminder how many people still struggle with this. I mean, I even had a pro that was there come up to me and be like, "Hey, I need to talk to you about my training. Like something's off," So like one of the speakers that was there, So it's like, it's what Drew says too. When he started with Fit Body and kind of co-coaching with Jamie, he was like, "I just assumed an Olympian knew everything. Like they knew how to train," and he's like, "They don't know how to train.
Yeah.
People just get really good genetics or get really lucky, or we get them, where their newbie gains as, they're gaining with the newbie gains, but then they hit that plateau. And because they've hit that plateau, now is like the time to really look into training and like how it's affecting them." So I think for me, the biggest thing is just keeping myself in check as a coach to remember that people do not know what they do not know. And that's something that I
Right.
talked about at CCTS. Like everything I'm about to talk about in this presentation, I do not expect you to know what you do not know, and as coaches, we have to remind that as well. Like no matter the level, we have to treat everybody from ground up. And then as we're treating everybody from ground up, it's okay for the client to reply back and be like, "Yeah, I got that. I know that. Okay, cool. Then we know we can go to the next step." But I don't think that there's also any kind of detriment with starting from the ground up, because you can always relearn something, right? Like the way that you get proficient at anything is by starting from the ground up and working your way up to know how all the processes work. So that's my biggest thing. You know, how many people came up to me and was like, "Oh my God, I didn't know how to track my sessions." You
Yeah.
know, I didn't know what progressive overload was. I just thought that that was, you know, a term of, you know, increasing weight, you know, not
Yes.
truly what the intention is behind progressive overload. So these things that we talk about all the time as coaches or, you know, in seminars, but girls are sitting in their seat having no idea what that speaker is talking about, or, you know, what the Jordan, what's the definition of intensity? You know, like that's just a word that people, it just, you know, goes, flies by. So just taking things back to the ground level and spending more time educating on the things that we think are simple, or, you know, things that everybody knows, never assume.
Yeah, well, to that point too, you were mentioning the whole progressive overload thing. I can't tell you how many clients, after I've given them their program, are like, I can't increase the weight every week. You don't have to.
You
That's
shouldn't be
not
able
that's
to. Yeah.
no, that's not progressive overload. And you start thinking back and you're like, okay, so this, like, there's lots of ways to make that harder every week. And that does not mean you have to increase your weights. I can't tell you the last time I've increased the weight on my stuff. Like, I can't tell you the last time, but I have increased the time under tension. I have increased the number of reps. I have increased the number of sets, things like that. Like, there's lots of ways to do that without physically upping the weight every time. And some people think that means you have to physically up the weight every time.
That's
Absolutely
mostly the
don't.
definition I hear. Like when I'm on a call,
Yes.
they'll call up, be like, "Do you know what progressive overload style training is?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, like that's where you increase the weight." And I'm like, "Yes, but
Yes.
there's a
But
lot more. It's not just
yeah,
the weight, you know, like we should always be trying to increase weight, but you're not always going to be able to. So here's some more tools of ways that you can still progressive overload and keep that intensity going in your session without just focusing on the weight."
absolutely. Absolutely. And just stuff like, simple things like the prep and prime stuff. People don't understand what that is half the time. They don't even know what that means. I have a new client I just signed on a couple weeks ago, and she came in with her first week check-in, and she's talking about how she did like her prep and prime for her back work on her leg day. I was like, that doesn't work like that. I was like, you're not lifting your legs when you're prepping your upper body, like vice versa. Or she would do her prep and prime work on one day and then go train the next. I'm like, no. Like, it's prep and prime. It prepares you and primes you for the workout. You
For the
think
session.
right, you think logically that makes sense. But when nobody's ever done it like that before for you, or never explained it like that to you before, it's not that simple.
Right.
So this is a different, the way we do stuff is different. And I was going to mention this because we had a Fit Body call yesterday. I was going to mention this at the end, but everybody's talking and my Bluetooth wasn't working. And anyway, I said this at CCTS. I said, though this was the last big CCTS that we're doing, this can lead to, whatever else. I've always said from the beginning that I would not be a coach, that was not my thing. I did not want to coach people.
Look
The
at you now.
biggest, I know, the biggest reason for that is because I didn't feel like coaches in this industry were actually coaches.
Well, there's a lot of those still, but yes.
There's still a lot of those, yep. But with working with FitBody, I've realized we actually coach people. There's a method behind the madness. And that's what made me want to do it. I'm like, okay, this is something where I can dig in and I can help people progress. I didn't have that kind of vision before. My past programs, my past coaches before Jamie were all like, here's a paper, follow this. Here's a diet, follow this. And that was it.
Yeah.
No other help, no other instruction, no other check. Let me check your form. No, none of that. I remember there was one coach where I flew out. I was doing two shows back to back weeks, and their studio was right there. So I was like, I'm going to come to your studio in between the two shows. That particular coach wasn't even in town that week. They were like,
Wait,
okay, I'll see you at the next show.
unreal.
I was like, all right, cool. I'm glad I flew all the way out here to use another gym. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
And it turns
that
you
that was
off of being a coach because
correct.
if that's your expectation of what a coach is, you're like, I want nothing to do with that.
That's
Versus
right.
like, I want to become a coach because I want to turn the tide on what the
I
expectation.
want to help somebody get better. You know what I mean? Like, and now I feel like with the knowledge that we have as coaches through FitBody, we can do that. You know, we can make people better, and we're constantly on calls. We're constantly educating ourselves. Like, this is something too. Even when I'm at CCTS, I sit there and I listen to every single presentation because I know I'm going to learn something. You know, somebody might just say something that clicks in my head, and I'm like, oh, that makes so much more sense. Or just like, not even for myself, but how to teach it to somebody else.
Bingo.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, that's big. Like, I need to be, as a coach, I need to be increasing my knowledge base to help you as an athlete. And again, that goes back to, like, that's why whenever I go to these events, I go to as many of these seminars, things like that I can, because I'm gonna pick something up. It may not be everything that I already know, but there's gonna be something. There's gonna be something that I can grab onto and say, I can use that, you
Yeah, you
know.
should always be a student of the sport. And like just like you said, like of course all of the speakers that presented this weekend, like we have a general understanding on. But the way
Yes.
that Riva says something is
Right.
something I could take back to an athlete and communicate very well about, or have another way to say something. As a
Yes.
coach, we deal with so many different types of people and their brains work completely different ways. As a coach, your
Mhm.
strength is being able to take the concept that you're trying to deliver and have three different ways of saying it, because
Mhm.
one person responds this way, one person responds this way, and so that's what the biggest thing I get always from listening to other people talk is how they say things and
Yep.
the thought process behind them, and keeping those in the back of my head for me communicating with athletes. And just like you said too, like of course I'm going to pick up a little nugget here and there from everyone's presentation, you know.
Yep.
We were on a fit body call yesterday, and they wanted me to do, well, Hannah, all of us are going to do it. Anybody that spoke this weekend from Fit Body is going to be coming on our team Fit Body call and giving the presentation. And it's not necessarily to educate our coaches because they should know pretty much what
Right.
we're all talking about, but it's to talk about how we deliver the presentation to your audience. Your
Right.
audience at CCTS is girls that are completely new, wet behind the ears, didn't even know what a regional show was until Saturday, all the way
Right.
up to IFBB pros. And it was cool, the messages that I got after the call, like, thank you so much. I now know like how to explain progressive overload to an athlete. Or I just picked up a logbook myself. There was 2 or 3 coaches that messaged me yesterday. I'm going to buy a logbook. I don't
Yep.
want to use trainer eyes anymore. I'm like, all right, talk to Jamie. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's cool. Like it's like we are all constantly learning from each other, and we all have strengths. And yours is posing. I've come to you with some clients of mine. I'm like, what do you think about this? Like you have an
Yes.
eye for that. Hannah's eye is like cannabis and the mental and reverse
How does I is
dieting.
weed?
Yeah. Hey, she's great at it. Like she's super educated on, you know what I mean? So like we all have each other. And that's what I love about Fit Body. Like everybody's like, why your team? And I'm like, it's our coaches. Like you're
Yeah.
coaching with me, but you truly on the backside, like you get all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I don't think you were down there when Vanya was speaking. She spoke on posing for
Yeah.
CCTS this year.
I was getting my
Um,
1 hour cardio in at that point.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I brought Vanya in for a couple of reasons. I mean, of course, she's a top 5 Olympian. But she's an amazing poser herself. But she also coaches posing too, and she's a really good posing coach. I hear lots of really good feedback about her and things like that. And she took to that stage like duck to water. She told me, that she was nervous about it because she'd never been there, never spoke before. I'm like, yeah, but you're like her background. She's a teacher. I was like, you're a teacher. You're an educator. This is what you do. And she got up there and just started. She broke the ice by saying like these "would you rather" kind of questions and stuff like that, and it was great. The girls all got that interaction going, and that opened them up to talk and participate a lot during her presentation. I gave everybody an hour to speak. She took an hour and 15 minutes or whatever it was because the girls were interacting with
Lit.
her. And she was the newest speaker on the panel, but she got up there and she just went for it. And I picked up a few things like you said as far as like how to deliver something. I was like, okay, that might resonate with somebody better, right? So it's like that those were the things that, like, for myself, I always try to pick up from these different seminars and stuff like that too.
Absolutely. I'm taking a course right now for 10 weeks with Dominic Kuza. So it's something that I wanted to invest in the first of this year. It's an expensive course, and it's about lab work, and so
Yeah.
too. And it's as a coach, as a professional, like you should be doing at least one continuing education course a year, in my opinion. Like do something even like outside of like your occupation, just something that you're interested in, or like a personal development course or a personal development retreat. I have some women that are like really, really big up in like, banks and things like that. And they go on yoga retreats. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yep.
I think that's part of setting yourself up for success during your year, starting off with something that's going to, grow you. And then you can take that through the year. I
Yep.
know Drew's struggling with this right now. He loves education. He loves learning. And because his load is so high right now, he hasn't been able to do any kind of continuing education. And he actually told me that he's a little jealous of me right now that I'm able to like have some time to do this course. He's like, I want to get education. I want to take a course, so it's like, we have to continue to we have to take responsibility of
Yeah.
making sure we continue to grow. And I think that's
Yeah.
sometimes when people, especially coaches, kind of get in a rut. They just know what they know and they're confident in that, and they never continue to grow and evolve. And especially in a sport or our career that's ever changing, new science is coming out all the time,
Mhm.
new methods are coming out all the time. Cold plunging, right? If
Yeah.
you're not up to
Yeah.
date on the research and what people are suggesting or science is suggesting, like you could really be damaging someone or blunting muscle hypertrophy due to cold plunging because you don't know how to instruct someone to do it. So, if you're listening to this, you don't even have to be a coach, but I do encourage you to try to find some sort of continuing education course that you're interested in. Learning is fun if you're
Yeah.
doing something or studying something that you love.
Yeah. Well, going to that point too, like you've probably noticed in the our little WhatsApp chats for Fit Body, I've started asking more peptide questions because to be honest, this past year I didn't have a chance to really focus on it much. So now I'm starting to get into that a little bit more. I'm, researching a little bit more on my own because there's just so many advancements and so many things that we can do to help our clients through the use of peptides. I'm just like, I want to know all this stuff, not just for myself, but just for them too. So that's one thing. I'm gonna start taking dance classes. Don't tell Jamie. But the way I look at it is, right? I reached out to an instructor yesterday or 2 days ago. So I'm gonna I'm here in Vegas. I'm gonna start taking them once a week, just so that I can kind of get something different for activity, but
Fun,
also flow.
fun.
Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that too. Like we've talked about with Fit Model, like it's really important to have that flow and that presence and things like that. So I just want to get out of my head a little bit and be able to move my body a little bit better. So I'm
Okay.
gonna start taking those. Yeah, start taking those a couple times a week, that kind of deal, or once a week or whatever I can fit my schedule. But things like that are they're fun. But it's going to challenge me in a little bit of a different way. And it's going to benefit me as I go forward, and it's going to benefit my clients too. Because I say, listen, well, I did this in class last week. Why don't you try that? You know what I mean? Something along that line. I mentioned that with the Pilates thing. Like, I didn't think I would like doing Pilates 3 times a week, but now I am, and I'm like, oh, I love this.
You're like,
You know
oh, I
what I
guess I'm
mean?
a Pilates babe now.
I know, right? I'm like, I like the fact that I can actually hold my core tight now. I was like, and that I could stretch. So, funny story. I mentioned this on my Insta stories the other day. I went in and got dry needling done right after CCTS. Of course, I wear heels all weekend. And
You
I'm,
don't wear heels, you wear skyscrapers.
I know
Let's be
I'm
honest.
6 foot. I'm 6'5".
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like this high on the platform.
Yeah. I'm like, she shouldn't be wearing those. I should be wearing those.
I know, but I have
Sorry.
this habit, like we all of our mobility issues. I have this habit of sitting into my right hip and my right leg, right. So my whole right side was completely like bound up and tight, right? So I went into my dry needling guy and he was like, holy crap. I was like, I know. He's like, well, he's like, I'm going to do both your glutes. I'm going to do your calves too, because my calves were super tight from the heels. And he went and, I already had the needles in my glutes, and he went to put the needles into my right calf, and he put two of them in. He put one on the side, and my whole calf just seized up, just like those Charlie horses, and wouldn't release. So he's like, I'm taking that one out. When he took it out, I bent the needle 30 degrees with my calf muscle. He was like, I was like, I've never seen a calf do that. He's like, I've seen quads do that. He's like, because the bigger muscle groups, they get, they that kind of thing. He's like, I've never seen a calf bend the needle like that. Because if you've ever seen dry needles, they're like this long. So the
Yeah,
whole
they're
needle
little.
was bent this way.
You're like, don't show me that. Don't show me that. Don't show me that.
I was like, oh my God. He's like, yeah. Like it's literally it was like that Charlie horse sensation. My whole calf cramped up and wouldn't release. And so then my glutes were seizing too because of that whole side of my leg was just like tensing up. He's like, no, we're taking that one out. It's like, and as soon as he took it out, like he moved it and I was okay. He got it into a less bound up spot. And it was better, but I was like he even went once he put those in, then he pulled out the Theragun and started hitting my hamstrings too. And like we were talking about this, the difference between the Theragun and the foam rolling, and the Theragun's just more superficial, and that's why he was using the Theragun because it was just to give me a little bit of extra on the hamstrings, right? And when he started doing that, I felt like again, I was just trying to breathe through it. I was sweating on the table, like I'm just laying there and I'm sweating. He's like, I got up after the session, I left like sweat marks on the table. He's, oh yeah, he goes, there's your ab print right there. I was like,
God, how many times I've literally sweat through like body work is insane.
oh,
Like insane.
oh. That
It's
was
it,
rough.
it
That
hurts.
was rough.
It
And he
hurts.
was like, so because I see him whenever I'm in Virginia, but I haven't been there. And when I was there, it was holidays, so he wasn't open and all that kind of stuff. So I haven't seen him since before my show. So he's like, you really
Oh,
need to
you
find.
were like needing it then. Yeah.
Yes, he was
Yeah.
like, you need to find somebody when you're not here to do this for you. So I think, and here's the difference. I have to reach. I'll reach out to Amy actually. I don't know if they allow it here in Vegas or not. Because with the dry
Dry
needling,
needling?
it's a physician that has to do it, and I know it's either here or it's California where they don't allow it because I had a client who lives in I think she lives in Cali, and she had to come here in order to get dry needling done. I think I can't remember which one it was. It was one or the other. So I have to find out if they allow it here or not, but
I
it's
know
licensing and all
Amy
that
at
stuff.
one point early in the season last year was having some issues with her tie-ins, and this is
Hmm.
how we kind of found dry needling. And I know she got it
Yeah.
done in Vegas, so I don't
Oh, she
know.
did. Okay.
Yeah, I
So I
don't know
think
how they're doing it, but
yeah, no, I think that's right because I think I can't remember, this was last year, so I can't remember if she lived here or if she lived in Cali, and I have to think about that. But she went to one or the other, so I think she lives in Cali and she came here to get dry needling done.
okay,
So with dry needling, you have to have an actual doctor do it because it's needles going into your body, so it's not like you're a massage therapist. You have to be a doctor.
yeah. And
So
my body work girl is a doctor of physical therapy,
yeah.
so that's why she can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So and usually the licensing aspect is just because if it's not legal in your states, because nobody's pushed for it, that's the only thing. So it's becoming more and more widely used. So more and more states are allowing the licensing for it, but there's some states that just again people just haven't advocated for it basically.
yeah,
So they gotta get people that are actually wanting to get licensed for it in order for it to be something that's admissible in your state, that kind of thing.
got it.
So, but anyway, but yeah, I'm gonna definitely, so after the last podcast, I got a handful of recommendations for bodywork people here in Vegas. So that's good. So
Good.
I'm sure I can find somebody that can do dry needling if it's allowed here, which I'm pretty
You could
sure
always
it's
pop over on
allowed.
a 40-minute flight to Arizona
I
and do it.
know. So yeah, there's that too. I was looking at the flights and stuff for the coaches weekend, and I'm like, it's $49 round trip.
It's so cheap.
It's like,
and it's literally by the time you get up in the air, you're coming right back down. Like you're
yeah,
gonna be like, oh my God, this is awesome. Yeah, it's so
yeah.
good.
And
And you could drive, like it's 4 hours, but I mean you could,
yeah.
yeah.
And the flights are literally like on the hour. It's like 'cause that's what I
There's
was,
so
so
many.
so Amy popped this into the WhatsApp group, but it's the coaches lift team lift. Is it Hive Gym? Is that where it's at on
Yeah, so
Friday?
the one that I've been tagging, the pink gym on
Okay.
social, that's the one that
Okay.
we're they're opening it up to you guys that weekend. I think they're doing like a coaches pass or something. I know we've been talking to them about it, but yes, that's where the team lift's going to be.
And how far is that from the airport?
Like 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Because there's a flight that gets in at like 11, and I think the team lift is at noon, right?
I believe so. Yeah. So
Okay.
literally, like you've been at our house. So like our
Yeah.
house is here, Hive is in the middle, and then the airport's just on the other side.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it's
Okay.
about 30 minutes to the airport, and then Hive is literally like right in the center of both.
Okay.
It
Because
takes
my
me 12
goal.
to get to the Hive from my house, but from Hive to the airport, you're on the 101, so you might get there a little bit faster. I can ask Drew. Actually, he went from the Hive to the airport yesterday.
Okay.
So
Because my
I'll
goal
ask.
is I'm hoping I can get to the coaches weekend with just a carry-on bag. I don't want to have to check bags.
You should
That's
be
my
able to.
goal.
And then obviously, if
Yeah.
you need anything, I can bring you stuff.
Yeah. Well, my thought was like usually the reason why I have to take more than one bag when I do these weekend stuff is because I have all my food, but I'm not in prep, so I can eat pretty much anything and I can Instacart, you know what I mean? So I'm like,
Stay
I'll
here
just
if you want to. I
what's
think
that
that's
say again?
great. I said you could stay here if you want to, but I think you guys get like the room and roommates, but you're welcome here.
No, well this year no. This year there's no it's we have to pay for our
Oh,
own stuff this year. So
if you want
well,
to.
maybe I'll be texting you. Maybe I'll
Okay.
text you.
Roomies.
I'm totally down
She's
for that.
gonna deal with those two. Aw.
I dealing with those two, that would be a pleasure because I miss my puppies. I miss my puppies when I'm here in Vegas. So yeah, a lot. So, but so here's a gross story. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
So
I mean, I
I
don't
had
know, am I?
I know I had the dogs outside for their morning potty yesterday, right? So we still have snow on the ground everywhere, all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm standing there and I'm waiting for them to come back around the side of the house, and they're not coming. Like I let them out the front door, they disappear on the side of the house. So normally Dolly comes right back in. She doesn't want to be out there, whatever. So I'm looking for them. I know they've gone around to the back of the house. So I go to my side window. I look out the window and I see Dolly with Elvis's poop in her mouth, and I was like, oh no. Oh no, no, no. So I was like, what? I banged on the window. She dropped it and went running. And so I told Dan, I was like, she was eating Elvis's shit. She was eating it. He's like, ah, ah. He's like, no more. He's like, she's trying to kiss me. No more kisses. No more kisses. No. Fuck
You know
no.
what's funny is
No
I
more
have caught
kisses.
Oliver doing that, my big guy, like
Yeah.
twice in his
Yeah.
lifetime. And it's with pennies. And I don't,
Yeah.
it must be they smell something. I don't, ugh,
And somebody's gonna
I've caught it
correct
before
me.
too. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And somebody's gonna correct me in the comments because I looked this up a long time ago and I can't remember if this is accurate or not. I think when they do that, it's because they're looking for a specific nutrient that is in the poop that they don't have in their diet or that they need more of or something. But again, I'm just spitballing. I could be completely wrong on that because I've never seen Dolly do that before. That's the first time. Not saying she hasn't, but I've never seen her do it before.
In it. Yeah.
So I'm like,
Well, if
I'm
she
wondering
usually
if
comes
she,
right back inside, then there's
yeah,
not a lot of time that they can be doing
yeah.
that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So my other wiener dog that I had before her, Sugar, she used to do that all the time. She had other health issues though too. So I feel like maybe that was why. Maybe. I don't
yeah.
know. So again, I'm speculating. These are dogs. They can't talk to us. So I'm speculating here. But she
All
used
right.
to
Well,
go after
great. Here
her.
you go, neighbor. Here's my dogs. Don't kiss them on the
No,
mouth. I'm
I
going to
know.
take them soon.
I know. She used to go after her. We had another lab, Casey. She used to go after Casey's poop all the time. And it was just like, I don't know why. I don't know why, but she used to do it all the time. Dolly, no, Dolly's not done that. So I don't.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that
Again,
with us. I
I was
guess.
like, again, at least from what I've seen, she's not done that. So I could be completely wrong on all of this, but
Let's
that's.
just hope she has it. We're just going
I
to tell
know.
ourselves
We're just
it
we're
didn't
gonna
happen.
say she has it because she has kissed my face way too many times. I'm like, no, no,
You're like, that is
no,
not on my face.
no.
Yeah,
She
we're
has
going to manifest that.
she actually thinks that she's like a human. She tries to like physically kiss you. So like, yeah, we're gonna say that didn't. We're gonna say that was the first time she's done that.
Yes. That's ignorance is bliss, right?
I know. Well, have you seen that? This was viral a few years ago. There's a video of a lion, and the lion has a dachshund that's cleaning its teeth. Um,
Nice.
yeah, there's that, and then there was this other one that went viral with this girl who had a dachshund puppy, and whenever you open your mouth, the dachshund put the whole head in her mouth. Dolly does that too. Like if you open your mouth, just sit there, like they'll come and put their whole head in your mouth. I have video of Dolly doing that from when she was a puppy. So yeah,
Penny's
but
got
I
a little bit of dachshund in her, but we always now is not the time, sir. We're talking about you, but that does not mean that you can play with a ball.
they've got to interject. This is their time to interject.
Yeah, I'm talking about you too. So she has dachshund in her, and then I told Drew like when these two are gone that I want to get a dachshund golden. So like I forget what they call them, the dashhound goldens.
So
That way I can
they're English
travel.
cream. They're English cream dachshunds. That's
Yeah,
that's what Dolly is. That's what Dolly is. She's an English cream.
it's like the
Yeah.
best of both worlds. So hopefully
Yeah.
it's small enough I could travel with it, and
Hmm.
yeah, because the biggest thing like when we're traveling this much, like when I start to get really emotional and feeling guilty is when they're home for weeks
Yes.
on end without us. And of course they're with the sitter, and the sitter loves them and takes good care of them, but nothing's like mom and dad, right? So it's like,
Absolutely.
yeah, the berries, or the berries, Barry and Rachel, they live in Tampa. She's a pro. They have a little dachshund that they travel everywhere
Yeah.
with.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Um,
such a good
what's his
dog.
name? What's
Oh,
his
I know.
name?
It's something different.
It's super cute, and this isn't
Yeah,
bother me. Every
it's
time
so.
I see him, I run up and pet him. Every time.
I know. I see his little face. He's so cute, and he's so
I
good at the
know.
shows. So
I know.
that's my vision. But no,
Yeah.
God will not bless me and give me a crazy one or something.
That's exactly what it was with Dolly. It's like they're supposed to. So the whole thing with the English cream version of the breed is they're supposed to be very like even keel. They're supposed to be the sweetest ones. They're supposed to be the nicest ones. They're supposed to be the calmest ones. Dolly's a fucking psychopath. More,
And
way more so than my first one, Sugar. Way
and
more
Penny's
so.
a psychopath, and she's got a bit
Yeah,
of both and some other stuff in her. So I'm like,
yeah.
yeah.
So no, it's not. It's not. It was funny because when we
Okay.
first got her, it was a breeder in Indiana or Illinois. Anyway, when they were sending us video of like Dolly with the rest of her pack, Dolly was the one always we could see even as a puppy instigating trouble. We're like, oh, this would be a problem. It was like from
But
the
you're
very
also like,
beginning.
that's my dog.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. From the very beginning, we're like, she's the troublemaker. 100% the troublemaker. And
No.
that has never left. That has never left. It's so, but she's the best. I mean, the one thing with with dachshunds is they are incredibly, incredibly loyal. Like very, very loyal. So like when she's with Elvis, like without me and Dan, she's fine. Like she won't like go into high pitched bark mode. She never attacks people either. She doesn't bark or she doesn't bite people. She just barks at them like high pitched, like annoying bark. If she's not with us, she's fine. She doesn't bark. She's fine. If she's with us, she won't shut the fuck up. Like, like that's like can you just stop? Like, doesn't your freaking throat hurt? Like, stop. Like,
So
if
she's a
she's with
barker.
yeah, she's like, and it's this really high pitched, like nonstop, like really bad, really bad. So, and it's with people she knows. Like when our housekeepers come over, when our neighbor comes over, when anybody she knows comes over, she's nuts. But you can ask Jennifer. Jennifer's watched our dogs several times. When she comes over to watch them, and we're not there, they're fine, no problem. If
So
we're
they're
there,
alerting you. They're trying to
yeah.
alert you, right?
She's defending her territory is what Dolly does. She's defending her people.
Yeah.
She's defending her pack. And even when she's not at the house, she's better when she's out in like the public versus the house
Because it's not
because
her territory.
it's not her territory. Correct.
Interesting.
Yes, correct.
Penny does
But
the same thing. Like Oliver's basically mute, but if Penny hears like another dog or something, she's like, "Roar!" And I'm
yeah,
like, why are you talking?
yeah, yeah.
I see them. I see it.
It's so weird. Like they have different preferences. Like my first dachshund hated men because she didn't grow up with men. She grew up around women. This was before Dan and I were together, all this kind of stuff. She hated Dan, hated him when she first met him. Then Dan got her a steak, and all of a sudden she loved him. So there was that, you
And
know.
kind of
And
like
then
you, give you a
I know,
steak. So
give me a steak, we're
give
good.
me a steak and a glass of
We're
wine.
good.
You
I
got me in
know.
your back pocket forever.
Yep. And then Dolly doesn't like old people. I don't know why, but she doesn't like old people.
Well, maybe
I
a grandma like swatted her or something once, and
I
she
don't
was.
know. She's fine with
Hey,
people.
you know what?
If you've got gray hair and you're
Kids
old,
don't like grandmas either. They get,
yeah,
they get a little
yeah,
freaked out too. I
yeah.
used to be freaked out by my great grandmother when I was super little. I was like, there's photos. It's bad.
Oh, that's too funny.
Rest in peace, Grandma Bessie. Love you, but
That's so funny. Like it's just interesting to see how those personalities all come out. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. The dogs are the best though. That is one thing. There was so my flight out here, sitting right directly behind me was a guy with a cat, right? So I've never seen a cat on a plane before, ever in my life.
emotional
So
support cat.
yeah, basically. So I saw him come on the flight. He's like Mr. Hippie guy, right? So he comes on the flight. He asked a couple of people before it's Southwest, so you can choose your seat, right? So he's asking a couple people before me if they're allergic to cats because he has a cat, and everybody was telling him that they're allergic to cats because they didn't want to sit next to him. So finally, he just took the seat behind me, right? And he sat down, and then the cat was quiet the whole time, except for when we landed. When we landed, the cat started crying. Which there's not for me. I don't know. I don't mind the cat cry as much as I do a bark from a dog. Like a bark from a dog is just different.
I don't know.
So
I've heard some pretty serious cat cries before.
yeah,
We had cats growing up, and I remember taking them to the vet, and they were like, "Rrrr," and I'm like, what
yeah,
is that noise?
yeah. Well, he was, and he actually warned people. He's like, if she starts crying, I apologize or whatever, that kind of thing. But
Oh,
I was
poor guy.
laughing
It
because I
sounded like
was
he was like anxious about it.
He was, yeah. I was sitting there and I could hear him talking to the person next to him, behind me. And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I try to be nice." He's like, "I got on the flight, and the first, 3, 4 people I asked if they were allergic to cats, suddenly everybody's allergic to cats." He's like, "So I just stopped asking."
Probably
Because he
smart.
asked the people, yeah, he asked the people in front of me, and the guy sitting in the seat was like, it looks to his son or whoever, was like, "Are we allergic to cats?" And he goes, "Yeah, actually, I'm allergic." It's like the dad did that, not the son. The dad did that. I was like, that was a bitch move. I was like, if the guy
That's
had asked me, yeah, if the guy had asked me, I would have said, "No, you can sit down." But I was in the
See,
aisle
but then
seat.
Drew is like deathly allergic to
Yeah,
cats. So like there has been a
yeah,
cat in the plane before, and thankfully like we didn't have to talk about it. The guy just sat really far away. But
yeah,
there are
yeah.
people that are deathly allergic. And Drew,
Oh
I have
yeah.
seen it time and time again, he cannot go to my dad's house to this day.
Mhm.
He cannot sit in there. It's just bad. The repercussions are
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. So I mean, I get that totally, but you could tell that the dad just didn't want to sit next to a cat.
Of
That
course.
was just,
Yeah. It's jerk move.
yeah. I would have let him sit next to me, but in my aisle, all it was I had the outside, somebody else had the inside thing, and he would have been sitting in the middle. So I don't think he wanted to sit there. I'm like, I'm cool. You can sit. I'll put the cat on my lap. I'll pet the cat the whole freaking time.
You can
I'm
sit in the
good with
back of the
that.
plane, but your cat can sit here.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, you just put the cat next to me. It's cool. So, because I'm an aisle person most of the time now. I used to be a window person, but I'm an aisle person now because my legs, like I like to be able to stretch them out, get up and go to the bathroom and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that and how
So
much we pee,
yeah, exactly.
especially on those 4.5 hour, 5 hour planes. Like I hate
Yeah,
sitting in the middle,
yeah.
like, on the end toward the window. So I'm like, sorry, I gotta
Yep.
pee. Yeah.
Yep. I'm like, if I can stick my feet out in the aisle, I fell asleep on the flight, and the stewardess came by and she smacked my head, but whatever. And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I'm like,
Yeah.
it's okay. I needed to wake up anyway. It's all good. No big deal. But anyways, so yeah, so well, our year's off to a really good start, I believe. I think a very poignant, directed start, in my opinion. So I'm really happy about that. It's almost like a whole new breath of life. I talked about this before. Like my year this year is going to look a little bit different. I'm trying to make better, smarter choices about where I spend my time and how I go to shows and all those kinds of things. So I'm kind of plotting that out right now. I really, for me, my goal is I want the majority of my clients to be ones that I do everything for, meaning the hair, makeup, suits, posing, training, and diet, all of it. So I'm a little bit of a control freak, a little bit.
Oh, you no, never. Me? No, never.
So I want control of everything. Oh, and this was something else that I wanted to mention too, because I put this on my stories yesterday as well. I mentioned this because I had so many people. I have this happen all the time. I don't know about you, but I have people tell me all the time that I'm much nicer in person than I am online.
I saw you posted that. I was like, what's happening?
I was laughing because at the Monday clinic, right? I don't even know how it came up, but I said something to the effect of, when I'm communicating with people like through text or messages or something, I'm very direct, and I don't put a lot of emojis and all this kind of stuff. So I think it comes off as being, intimidating or that I'm mad or something like that. I'm like, I'm not. I'm just trying to get the message across. I think I'm a lot nicer in person. And literally the whole room goes, "Oh yeah, you're way nicer in person." I was like, "I'm
It's
sorry."
so
I'm like,
hard to assess what am I like the tonalities. We've
yes,
talked about this before through text,
yes,
you know. I had a client that reached out to me this week and she was like, "Hey, like I felt like your response last week was like a little like short and I was building up a little resentment, so I wanted to talk about it." And I was like, "Okay, well, here was like my intent behind it." She was like, "Oh,
right,
that's a completely different way than I interpret it." And I'm like, "Yeah,
yes,
like sometimes it's and I appreciate, them coming to me and being like, 'Hey, like is that what you meant?' Like I don't feel
yeah,
like it was, but Sometimes it's just really, really hard. And you know what? Honestly, like we're human. Sometimes we're just super busy and we do just get straight into the point with no emotion and inflection behind it. And I have to remember as an athlete myself too, that I dissect every word that Jamie says to me. And I'm like, is she happy? Is she not? You know what I mean? And like remembering that as a coach, like how important that response is to that athlete, So it's being part of being human, which is why I appreciate the communication and vulnerability of somebody coming to us and saying that, because it puts us in check.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
remembering that.
Well, that's, something too, like I've talked about this before when I do check-ins for clients. There's some weeks where I will do a lot of voice notes in Trainer Eyes because I want them to hear what I'm saying versus read what I'm saying, because I know it's going to come off better if they hear it versus what the text might portray,
Totally.
and I get that. Like, I think this also comes from being in an industry that is fully run by men versus women. So we have to be a little bit harder, just all the way around. We can't be emotional. We can't be soft. We can't be those things. So, I know that that's definitely skewed how I respond to things over the last 15 years. And the fact that my husband is super hard on everything too, like that affects how I communicate too. I can't be emotional. He's not emotional at all. Zero.
Right.
So like I have to be like this, right? And then I realized that not everybody's like that. You know what I mean? So it's like having to figure out how to respond to people. But I just thought that was a funny anecdote because literally the whole room was like, "Oh yeah, you're way nicer in person."
And you're like, all right, well, at least I'm nice in person.
I know. I was like, I'm sorry, guys. I was like, I swear, and this is why I like meeting people in person too, because I think that they understand how to interpret things I say to them, like through text and stuff too. Because they're like a lot
your
of
tone, your personality.
yes. I was like, a lot of times I'm like, I'm just trying to get you an answer and that's it. I was like, I'm like, that's why Dan takes over most of the customer service stuff, because he comes from a very non-emotional space and he can put it together like, XYZ, that kind of deal. And for me, it's just like, I'm just trying to get an answer to you, period. That's it. So it's like, it's just funny. I was laughing. They're like, oh yeah, you're way nicer. Like the eye rolls and everything. I was like, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
Sorry, but at least I'm nice in person.
I know. Sorry, not sorry. That's just how I am,
We miss
So
you.
that's how we survive in this industry. I mean, honestly, that's how we survive. Just is what it is. You've got to be able to be a little bit cold sometimes, unfortunately. That's the unfortunate part. So yeah.
To protect
Then we
yourself
just
too.
we just have some gummies and we're good to go.
Love
We
it.
love everyone.
And good place to end it.
Hey Hannah, we need some
Yeah.
help.
Hannah, you want a gummy?
Yes, that's a perfect place to cut that. Perfect place to cut that right there. So guys, at the end of this, like I said, when we finish up with our little sign off here, I'll go ahead and put up the footage that I grabbed from the Fit Model portion of our CCTS event, officially the world debut right there.
So cool.
Yes.
So cool.
um, and with that, we'll be back again next week with another episode. This is episode 73. Make sure that you are liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing, whatever you got to do. And we are off to a rip roaring start for 2025. So thank you so much for all of your support, and let's have a great year.
Let's go.
Bye, guys.
Bye.